Just here we go. So thank you all for joining this evening. I'm the chair of the Ward 3 Democratic Committee, and tonight we are pleased to welcome Chairman Phil Mendelson. He will speak briefly for a few minutes, and then we'll take questions and answers. I am asking folks to limit your questions to things that are happening on the committee, on the council right now, council oversight, budget, etc. Any campaign questions, you will need to follow up with the chairman when he's wearing his campaign hat, but tonight he is wearing his chairman of the council hat. So with no further ado, Chairman Mendelson, is all yours.
Uh, Thank you, Deidre, and thank you for the invitation to be here. So I think there were four issues that I wanted to touch on. The budget, the what's going on with Congress, the recent vacancy from Kenyon McDuffie's resignation, and reorganization. With regard to the budget, the mayor's supposed to submit her budget for fiscal year 2027 and a revised budget for the current year on April 1st. And I'm expecting that the budget is going to be a bit tougher than last year, even though every year we're told that it will get better. And the reason why is because there's been a lot of overspending, and that has not stopped because our revenues, while they're growing, are relatively flat. And because the chief financial officer, I think because of pressure from the council or from me with regard to overspending, is requiring now that the mayor has to budget for what are called unbudgeted expenditures. I didn't know such things exist, but that is increasing the bond escrow for the borrowing that we do. That is not normally budgeted. Increasing our reserve funds, which are required to be a percentage of spending. And so as spending goes up, the reserves have to go up. And for the Federal Reserves, there's no discretion there. And then there have been, we've typically under budgeted for things like settlements and judgments and for under budgeted for overtime. So these are all spending pressures. When the mayor submitted the budget last year, although she increased the funding for schools, the uniform, she showed a decrease. So this for FY27, there's supposed to be a decrease. I don't think that's going to happen. So that would be another spending pressure for the budget. That is to maintain school funding. Childcare, there are several programs there have been under budgeted and have been overspending. And so there's pressure there to increase funding. And we're talking about tens of millions of dollars. WMATA, there's been a lot of work regionally with regard to maintaining a state of good repair, as well as enabling WMATA to do some improvements like automatic train control. And roughly the cost of the district would be $171 million additional. These are just examples of some of the spending pressures as the budget is being formulated. We will get the budget, as I said, April 1st, unless the mayor is late once again. With regard to Congress, there are about 15 bills that were reported out of the House Oversight Committee. They are not being friendly to us. This is really a partisan issue, and I hate to put it that way, but the Republicans have been pushing these bills. The Republicans have been voting unanimously. The Democrats, for the most part, have been unanimous in their opposition, and if not unanimous, overwhelming in their opposition. And so we've already seen about a half dozen bills that have passed the House floor and are sitting in the Senate. The Council retained a lobbying firm in September, and we are much more active on the Hill, both in the House and in the Senate, to try to block these bills. One of the bills would get rid of the elected Attorney General and have the President of the United States appoint without Senate confirmation. Another bill would get rid of the Judicial Nominations Commission so that the President could simply choose whomever he wants, subject to Senate confirmation. Another bill would make it easier for the U.S. attorney, in fact, make it possible for the U.S. attorney to prosecute 14-year-olds as adults. Another bill would establish some new mandatory minimum sentences and increase some existing mandatory minimum sentences way beyond what any other state requires in terms of sentences for crimes. And the list goes on. Kenyon McDuffie, who had changed his party status in 2022 and was elected as an independent, resigned so he can run for mayor as a Democrat. We filled the vacancy with a staff person from the council. That sounds like maybe we didn't look for the best candidate, but there was broad support among council members for Donnie Crawford, who has a lot of experience at the council. There are 4 members of the council right now who are former staffers: Anita Bonds, myself, Charles Allen, and I'm blanking on the 4th at the moment. So Donnie, we're looking forward to Donnie being a great council member. She was appointed on January 20th at an additional meeting of the council. I broke up the Committee on Business and Economic Development and distributed its different parts among different committees. So the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development is for this year with Matt Fruman and the Committee on Human Services. ABCA, which is the Alcohol Beverage Cannabis Administration, is with Brianne Nadeau and the Public Works and Operations Committee. The Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking is now with the Committee on Health, Councilmember Henderson. The Chief Financial Officer will be in the Committee of the Whole. That's probably not a complete list, but those are the highlights that I can think of with regard to the reorganization. And lastly, the Committee of the Whole has jurisdiction over public education. We've had quite a number of hearings over the last couple of months on issues like truancy, academic achievement, OSSI, bus transportation for special education kids. And just this last week, we had a hearing on teacher retention or teacher turnover, however you want to put it, in principal turnover. We've really been pushing for stability in our schools, stability in terms of reducing turnover, and stability in terms of budgeting, so that schools actually can grow from one year to the next, rather than every spring going through a fight just for trying to hold on to what they have. I'm happy to answer questions about any of these issues or any other issues that I didn't touch on.
Okay, so far I have 2 questions in the chat. The first one is, there's a comment and then a question. And Karen, I see I'll do you right next. Okay, sorry. I appreciate it if the chairman spoke to the chief of police situation. My understanding is that Mr. Curl supports close coordination with the federal occupation and has not been a supporter of First Amendment actions. Does the council plan to confirm him?
I think that the council should have a confirmation hearing, but we cannot unless the mayor submits his appointment to the council for confirmation. I could put that a little differently. I think the chief of police is an important enough position that the mayor should send a nomination to the council. Our law requires that a person cannot be acting for more than 6 months. So if the mayor thinks that she can get by the whole year, I think it puts at risk Chief Carroll's authority. With regard to the criticisms, I have heard those. I do not know if they're substantiated. I've actually heard arguments on both sides. A public hearing would be a good way to find out or to press those issues and see what the truth is. But the bottom line for me is that I think the mayor needs to submit for appointment, a permanent chief.
Karen, who is a voting member. Karen, did you have a question? Did you want to ask it out loud? It looks like.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, when you have talked with us in the past, we've had a brief discussion about the lack of a senior wellness center in Ward 3, despite the large number of seniors in Wards 3, and I think we have the largest concentration actually across the wards. Last year, when you came, you said rather unequivocally that there would be a senior wellness center. I think you framed it as west of Rock Creek Park. In past meetings, you've also said that that you've talked about the flexibility in the capital budget. And so my question has to do with the prospect of using that flexibility, particularly as a task force that the council created on senior wellness centers in wards 2 and 3, and the feasibility of these centers has just reported out. So I'd like to hear how you see the council addressing the needs of seniors in Ward 3.
Well, what I said last year was based on activism by council members Fruman and Pinto, the Ward 3 council member, the Ward 2 council member, and they were both pushing for 1 or 2 senior wellness centers west of the park. I have, to be honest with you, I have heard nothing in months with regard to this. I have looked to them to take the lead with regard to this. I will note that there are a couple of villages in Ward 3, like the Cleveland Park Village. It's not the same as a senior wellness center, but it is, I would say, part of the total ecosystem. And of course, Iona is a very important asset to the ward. So I don't know that I have anything more specific to tell you because I've been really looking to Councilmember Fruman and Pinto to be pushing this.
Yeah, as the task force report went to the council, and it is about to, I assume, get publicly released in the next month. And at that time, I would hope that we will have greater discussion of this in the listservs across the ward. So
Sure.
stay tuned for that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next question is, how is the council with the mayor and MPD preparing for the possibility of ICE, CBP use of deadly force against observers and protesters in the district?
Well, I would say that the mayor, the attorney general, and I have been talking about how we can be prepared with regard to this, not just simply ICE in its most recent I'm hesitating because I don't want to say activities. That's being too kind. But I mean, I would say there, but for the grace of God, go us, because we have not had that kind of violence, even though there have been some very bad incidents in the district. How are we prepared? The Attorney General has been looking at legal arguments should something happen. And as I said, the mayor and I and the attorney general have sometimes had even weekly calls to discuss how to handle these things. You all know the district is in a more precarious position than the states in that we just do not have the flexibility to be able to assert our rights as robustly as Governor Walz or the governor of Illinois. At the same time, I feel strongly that we need to avoid any appearance of acquiescing because I don't think that is successful. I looked at the video of the shooting on, I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, and it's just shocking. Not just the shooting, but what immediately preceded it in terms of behavior by ICE. There's just no excuse for that. At least the state of Minnesota can prosecute under state law. We are unable to do that. As you know, there were 2 incidents where ICE fired into a passenger, fired into a private vehicle in the district, did not actually wound the driver, but there were bullet holes in the car seats, and the U.S. attorney declined to prosecute. I just think that's inexcusable, but we don't have control over that.
Um, before I get to you and Dean, because you both have questions verbally, there is a follow-up to that question I want to get to quickly, and that is someone's asking, a member of our neighborhood listserv reported that there was plans for ICE CBP staging area in Ward 3. Have they been in touch with the council about this, and do you have any information about it?
No, they've not been in touch with the council. They don't consult with local authorities at all. ICE does what it wants to do. That's a problem in itself. And as I said a minute ago, ICE doesn't seem to respect the need for training, doesn't seem to respect proper procedures for law enforcement, doesn't seem to respect First Amendment, doesn't seem to respect innocent people's lives. No, they've not talked to us about any center in Ward 3, and this is the first that I'm hearing that.
Okay. I have two members who want to ask oral questions. Shelley, Dean had put his in the chat first. So Dean, you go first and then Shelley.
Hey, hi, Chair Mendelson. Good to see you on Zoom. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but DC has a higher prevalence of Alzheimer's disease than any county in the United States and any state in the United States. I've been lobbying the council about Alzheimer's disease since 2018 and sadly work very closely with Vince Gray about this. When I started, DC Health would say DACL should work on Alzheimer's. It's about old people. DACL would say DC Health should do it. We've made a lot of progress since then, but it continues to be a major public health crisis in DC and get very little attention. So one of the proposals that I'm going to be advocating before the council this year, Christina Henderson, of course, before the health committee, is twofold. First, to require doctors and other healthcare professionals to get mandatory training in the latest developments concerning Alzheimer's disease, how to diagnose it, what the new treatments are, what people can do to prevent it. Most doctors really know nothing about that. And then second is to, again, have DC Health conduct an even bigger public awareness campaign. You may have seen a few signs on metro buses and some efforts that they have been making. And Dr. Bennett has been very responsive over the years since she's been the head of DC Health. But in any event, I wanted to hear your comments about whether you would support doing a lot more to deal with this devastating public health crisis.
I certainly would be supportive of our doing more with regard to Alzheimer's. I defer a lot to Councilmember Henderson. I think she's an excellent chair of our health committee. And I think the proper way to approach this would be to take your proposal, assuming it's in legislative form, and to go through the hearing process, see if there are any criticism of it or what the criticisms might be. I don't know what those would be, and to move forward from there. I did not realize that we have a higher rate of Alzheimer's than any other county
Yes.
in the United States. Regardless, I mean, there's a need there with regard to dealing with the disease, and the district has often been a leader on some of these issues, and it would be nice to be a leader on this as well.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Shelley Tompkin.
Good to see you in these troubled times.
Evening.
You mentioned that the council had retained a lobbying firm. And I was wondering if you have a sense of the prospects for these anti-home rule bills in the Senate, and particularly among Democratic senators. We've seen in the last couple of years too often Democrats who've supported statehood going along and voting against us. Do you have any sense of that? And really, I see one of the questions in the chat. You know, what can DC residents do about that with respect to the Senate?
Sure. So anything I say is a guess, although I'd like to think it's an educated guess. Some of the problem that we have, or some of the challenge that we have, is what happened with the criminal code reform. And I think that's what you're referring to, where Democrats ended up allowing it to be, the resolution to be adopted that rejected it, and then going to the president, and Biden signed that resolution. I mean, I think that was the start of our problem. And on that, the mayor had disagreed with the council, and the mayor's criticism became talking points for the Republicans in the House and the Senate. Once the Republicans were successful in beating us up on that, as I put it, they tasted blood in the water, and they've just continued and amped it up. So there's these 15 bills. Not all, the 15 bills, I think all 15 passed the House Oversight Committee in September. They have not all gone to the floor of the House yet. For the ones that have not gone to the House, we are trying to make sure that there are few, if any, Democrats who vote for those bills. What's behind these bills is not a genuine concern about the district, but rather Republicans seeing an opportunity to make Democrats look soft on crime and to make their election or re-election this year, 2026, more difficult. That's what it's about. The Oversight Committee, some of these bills were not introduced in the Oversight Committee until 2 or 3 days, literally 2 or 3 days before they voted on them in the committee. No hearing on any of the bills, no discussion about the pros and cons of any of these bills. And most of these bills have a long list of cons. The September oversight hearing that the mayor and I and the attorney general testified at, the chairman of the committee said that opened the hearing by saying it would be a conversation about public safety. It was anything but a conversation. Republicans are not interested. Republicans are seeing this as an opportunity to make the Democrats look soft on crime. So we're trying to stop the bills that have not yet gone to the floor of the House. We'll probably be unsuccessful. We're trying to minimize how many Democrats vote for any of these bills. The reason is because the more Democrats that vote for it, the greater risk we perceive in the Senate. We're hopeful that we will be able to keep all of the Democrats together in opposition in the Senate. As you know, the Senate pretty much doesn't do anything unless there's 60 votes, and the Republicans don't have 60 votes. So we're trying to make sure that there are few, if any, Democratic senators who would vote for any of these bills. None of these bills have come to the floor of the Senate. And there are a lot of conversations going on between our lobbying firm and Senate offices. I have been involved in a few of those conversations to try to make sure that these bills don't get any traction in the Senate. That's the best I can say at this point. The House is out this week. No, yes, the House is out this week. The Senate is in session, but they're preoccupied with the budget. And it looks like for the next couple of weeks, nothing could happen with regard to the district, but we are monitoring this on a weekly basis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the next two questions are housing questions, one from Judy Chesser. The Office of Planning has two proposals before the Zoning Commission to upzone 217 lots on Wisconsin and Connecticut Avenue. For examples, buildings will be matter of right up to 130 feet in Tinleytown and 150 feet in Friendship Heights. OP is building all design requirements into the rulemaking. Once these rulemakings are adopted by the Zoning Commission, there will be no further public review. When developers propose a project, as long as they stay within the rulemaking, the public must remain silent. OP says they are doing this in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Do you support this?
130 feet and 150 feet sounds a little bit too high to me. I can't say I have any enthusiasm around this, but the key, I hate to say this, but the key to any of these land use issues is the ward council member. That's who the council members tend to defer to, and that's who government officials tend to defer to.
The next one is from Chris O. Do you support changing DC law and practice to limit or end the privatization of public land for large market rate housing redevelopment, such as recently proposed for the Chevy Chase Commons in Ward 3? And in connection, would you sponsor or support legislation to create a municipally owned mixed income social housing program in DC, including authorization to use public land and retain public revenue under this municipality owned model now being implemented in cities around the nation, including Montgomery County? It was a lot of questions.
Yeah, there was a lot to that. So with regard to using government land for affordable housing, we've done that a number of times. Sometimes we've done it very successfully. Sometimes I would be critical of either the economics, that the district gave too much in terms of profit, gave away too much. But as a general proposition, I would not say that that's a bad approach. It just may not be the right approach every time. With regard to the second part of the question, which was social housing sounds very attractive, but actually it's just a variation of public housing. It may not be the most economical way to approach getting more affordable housing in the city. And I think that's really what we have to look at, is on a site-by-site basis, what is the best way to go forward? The district does not have so much money in its coffers that it can just go out and buy land and then make some of it public housing and some of it private housing that would subsidize the public housing, which is the social housing model.
Thank you. This question is from Peter Lynch. He is the chair of our statehood task force. He states, at the Statehood Commission meeting, you agreed that there ought to be clear goals and benchmarks to mark the progress of our path to statehood. Have you taken steps to create those benchmarks? There are also at least $60,000 of funds that are unaccounted for at the meeting. DC statehood efforts need more funding and more oversight. There's currently not more than $500,000 spent on statehood with the commission, but maybe $1 million in the mayor's office. Have you taken steps to ensure more funding and oversight?
Gosh, there was a lot there. Have I developed the plan for moving forward with statehood? No. That is what I have said over and over again the statehood delegation should do. The statehood delegation has roughly $250,000 every year. They actually have access to a little bit more than that. They would actually like more funding than that. And I have said to them that I don't support additional funding without their coming up with a plan. And the plan has to be a coherent plan that actually step by step moves us towards statehood. So what we see with the delegation, and sorry, but the question provokes me to go here. What we see with the delegation is they do a lot of one-off things, like somebody will use some of their money to travel to a state, maybe West Virginia, and get a resolution of support for statehood. Well, actually not from West Virginia, maybe just from the Democratic caucus in West Virginia. Not really very helpful. And then a year or two later, or maybe a year or two before, go to Vermont. I remember there was a big deal about that, to get a resolution from the state legislature. It's not tied together in a way that's strategic. What a state does in 2020 is really of no help to us in 2026. That's why I say there ought to be a plan, a coherent plan. That was what I was speaking about at the Statehood Commission meeting. I think there was something in the question about money missing. I don't know about that. That's the first time hearing that. And now I'm blanking. There were some other aspects to the
He
question,
wanted
which
to know, he said there's currently, well, you already answered that. You
Hey, Brent, may I jump in?
Yeah, Peter, go ahead. It's Peter's question. Sorry.
Yeah, Chairman Mendelson, thanks for answering the question. And I think the frustration is shared. As I understand it, you're also the chair of that statehood commission and the chair of the council.
the
And
mayor and I are co-chairs of the commission.
co-chairs. I guess what I'm really driving at is that so much of what ails us is a lack of statehood. And the problems you just illustrated that I'm speaking to as well, those members are not paid and they get minimal support through this funding. What can the council do? What can you do? What can that commission do, the city do, to really push forward statehood and try to end the situation that we are in right now? And how do we get there? I think we all want to get there, but it just seems like actions and behaviors are not moving towards that goal in a real and deliberate way.
Well, the honest answer is I don't think the shadow delegation is the way to get there, but we have the shadow delegation. And the thinking behind it when it was set up in the 1980s was that we would have these three people who would be our advocates up on the Hill. If you look at the last, 40 years, you don't see a lot of very strategic or coherent advocacy. You see three people who move in different directions. If I sound a little critical, it's because I am a little bit critical. They come to the council, they ask for more money. I don't see the point in giving them more money when all they're doing is just going off in three different directions. I have asked them year after year after year to come up with a plan. We restructured the situation maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where what we did was we incentivized that they would have, the three of them would have an executive director who would do a lot of the work, maybe most of the work, and the three of them would act as a governing board that would work together on developing a strategy, with the executive director being the full-time staff person who's implementing this. Think of DC Vote with its executive director. But they have refused to do that. So you've got the three different members. They're all, they're separately elected, so they're not accountable to each other. And I think at the moment they have two different staff people sort of serving like competing executive directors. Maybe that's a little unfair, but that's kind of what's going on. But I dare you to point to any strategy, coherent strategy, like we're going to next year or this year, since it's early, we are this year going to approach 10 states and get resolutions, and next year another 10 states. Frankly, I don't think 10 states would be enough. They don't have any plan, but they would
Mendelson,
like
what
us
is
to put
what
more
is
money.
your plan, if I may ask?
I don't, that's not my responsibility. That is the shadow delegation's responsibility. My plan right now is to make sure that the council is doing everything it can to prevent Congress from further eroding home rule.
All right, thank you for that. The next question comes from John Healy. His question is, what is the council planning? What is council planning to do to address astronomical increases in the utility bills that are now hitting DC's hardworking families at the hands of the Exelon, Pepco, and Washington Gas money grab that DC's PSC has rubber stamped approved? And then the second question is, DC Water's dramatic rate increases are also starting to take a toll on residents based on the complaints on the various neighborhood listservs.
Um, So there was some opinion behind that question.
Yeah, I think it was more, I
The
think it's one question about all of that. Yes.
yeah, so the reason why electric rates have gone up is because the PJM in the last auction, the cost of electricity went way, way up. If I remember correctly, and my numbers are not quite right, order of magnitude they are, that the price per, I'm not sure what the unit is, went from like $80 to $300. That's roughly a 400% increase. That's why our electric costs have gone up. What is happening to control those costs? I think we are limited in what we can do. Now, I will say that the Public Service Commission, which was in the Committee on Business and Economic Development, is now with the Committee on Transportation and the Environment, which handles other energy issues with oversight over DOEE. So maybe we'll see more oversight with regard to what's going on with rates. With regard to water, um, water rates have not gone up like in the same way that electric rates have. But a couple years ago, the council finally adopted legislation I put in that would give the Office of the People's Council authority to help water customers, just as they've had authority to push back on rate increases with electric and gas. I think the biggest problem that we're seeing is that electric costs have gone way up, but it's not Pepco, which is doing distribution, it's the purchase of electricity, the cost of electricity, which Pepco or Exxon doesn't generate. Somebody's going to say, well, Exxon does generate, but they don't generate the electricity that we buy in PJM.
Okay. The next question, and I would ask if anyone has a question at this one, this is the last one, to drop it in chat. We probably have time for one more question so we can let the chairman get back to his evening. This one comes from Cheryl Barnes. It says, when you say that the district gave away too much, can you be more specific about how many acres of DC public land have been surplus and given away? That's question one. Is it 500 acres previously given away or currently slated to be given away to private for-profit developers? That's two. How many units of affordable housing were created? That's three. And I think the last question is more a statement. It says fewer than 7,000 units during the Bauer administration years. I think that was more of a statement or a question.
Yeah, I'm not going to remember each of those pieces,
So the first one
and
was,
I wouldn't have that data at my
specific
fingertips.
about
So,
how many acres were given surplus?
no, I can't be specific as to how many acres. So, the mayor from time to time, to the deputy mayor for planning and economic development, will propose what's called a disposition of government land for housing development. We've seen that every year for decades. And when I had oversight over DEMPED, I remember a couple of the dispositions were like at the St. Elizabeth's property. I don't know how many acres that is. I mean, St. Elizabeth's, if I remember correctly, is 170 acres, but it's not all being disposed of. And most of it was going to be for affordable housing. The real question is whether the district is being economical in these dispositions. So I remember when I had oversight over DEMPED, there was a disposition on Florida Avenue near Howard University. And I actually had an appraisal done to see whether what the district was selling to the developer was selling at a price that was reasonable. And in my view, the district gave away about $4 million. This was 6 years ago, 8 years ago. Well, the mayor didn't like what I was saying and said it was about affordable housing, and I was getting in the way of affordable housing. And the council basically overrode me on that because affordable housing is politically very appealing and hard to disagree with whatever the price. This is a long way of saying that the issue is not whether it's government land, but rather the subsidy that we're providing the developer is only as much as needed to subsidize the affordable housing that we want. That's the issue there. How many acres, I couldn't tell you. I think part of the question was also the number of units. What I have in mind is that the mayor had announced, I think right before the pandemic, about 36,000 units. I think that the city has pretty much met that goal of 36,000 units. The percentage that were affordable that were west of the park was way below what the target was. But citywide, substantial number of units were produced. Was it enough? No.
Okay, so this will be the last question, and Chairman Mendelson, after we have this question, Sandy, you have your hand up? Okay, Sandy, what was it about this or something else?
It's related. Can I have a question?
Is it is related to the housing?
Yes.
Okay, so Sandy, and then I have one education question we got to make sure we get in tonight. Go ahead, Sandy.
Okay, Phil, how you doing? It's good to see you.
Okay.
So the city is facing all these challenges right now on multiple fronts, and it doesn't seem like we have much leverage in anything, and maybe that's the problem with the question I have for you, which is the RFK site. It seems like we've done a big giveaway to the commanders, and the contract is set, but there's a lot of stuff. The fine details are yet to be decided, and I was wondering what we can do with the commanders to get them to, help the district. They're not going to have much of a of a. I mean, it will help them to have the district on sounder footing to have their franchise there. And what are they doing to promote? And what can we get from what other concessions or agreements can we get, particularly as far as affordable housing are concerned, from the commanders before this thing is built and all that is done?
Well, the mayor negotiated a deal with the commanders, which she then had to submit to the council. The deal that she negotiated would require the commanders to develop, if I remember correctly, about 6,000 units of affordable housing. I might have that number wrong, but I think that's what it was. It's a lot of affordable housing. Now, the deal that she negotiated, she had to submit to the council. And in my discussions with the commanders, we were able to improve the cost to the district by about $800 million. So could we have done better? Possibly, but I think we were at a point where there wasn't much more juice to squeeze out of that lemon. About $800 million improvement over what the mayor had negotiated. There will be substantial affordable housing built. Actually, if you want to know more, I would suggest you go to the council's website. You should be able to get our budget office's report, as well as the report from Robert Bob, as well as the report from the chief financial officer. I think the budget office looked at the short-term benefits and the long-term benefits. In the long term, a stadium is probably not the most economical to the city. However, a stadium is very popular. And even though there are a lot of people who don't believe in public subsidizing, and frankly, if I had my way and there was no other consideration, I don't think I would want to see public subsidy of a stadium. But there was a lot of support for that, an awful lot of support for that. So politically, that had to happen. But in the short run, the Commander Stadium is much more economical to the city than not having a stadium. And why? Because the Commanders, to deal with the Commanders, accelerates development of the RFK site. It accelerates it by at least a decade. So that's a long answer. I don't know if that made sense.
Thank
Happy
you.
to
I'll try.
answer
I'll
a
try.
follow-up
Thank you,
question.
Phil. I'll try to look at those reports. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this will be the
Okay.
last question. We may run
Yes.
over 3 or 4 minutes, but Elizabeth Mitchell, who is a committee woman for Ward 3, is asking about school budgets. How are we going to protect programs when we lose all of the Title I funding? She goes on to say our teachers need more support, as do our social workers. More teachers are having to provide food and snacks for their classrooms. Our local budget doesn't seem to have the line item that allows social workers to dip into city funds to help with things like eyeglasses and coats. The second part of her class question regards students who are directly impacted by everything that's happening with ICE. She's saying that they don't have parents. They have parents that can't leave their apartments because one adult in the house has already been deported. And so those are the two questions: local budget, and what are we going to do about helping families and children with ICE issues?
Well, as Elizabeth knows, I have been a strong advocate for ensuring that schools do not lose funding that they have. Is it enough for everything they need? No. But what we saw this year was that for the first time, very few schools were dealing with any cut to their budget in the proposed budget, and that is my position. That schools, we need to maintain stable funding for schools, and if possible, increase that funding. I don't know if that fully answers that question. I think part of it had to do with Title I, and I'm not sure what to say there. I mean, every school system across the country is struggling with threats from the federal government with regard to cutting back or conditioning federal spending. And we're not in a position, if there was to be a cut, to be able to make it up. Our budget just doesn't allow that. But I don't have a sense that that's going to be our problem this year. Our problem this year, as I said at the outset, was that the mayor, when she prepared the budget last year to balance the financial plan, showed a reduction in spending for schools. And it is my hope that that does not come to pass. We need to maintain funding in our schools. The second part, which had to do with ICE, um, I I'm not sure what to say. I think ICE's tactics are counterproductive and horrible and unconstitutional and illegal, and I don't think I could be any clearer about it. Um, some folks have said to me that we ought to pass legislation that allows us to arrest ICE officials. I'm not sure that that works in the District of Columbia. I'm not sure it works anywhere. I will say that the situation in Minneapolis with the ICE murder of that individual, the state could prosecute for murder. We don't have that ability. The U.S. attorney is the one who prosecutes. Two shootings that ICE did commit that the U.S. attorney is unwilling to prosecute ICE. So I have nothing good to say about ICE. I think it is harmful to our schools. I think it's harmful to our communities, and I think it's harmful to public safety. And if I could make them go away, I would do that. That's my view of that.
Just a quick follow-up question. Elizabeth is asking, could we provide funding for families to draw up documents to protect kids when they're taken? So they maybe some kind of legal fund or something.
I can elaborate on that. I think there are plenty of ways that we can be drawing up legislation, directing funds to be helping families that are in this situation, as well as the communities that are responding to the threats. There are absolutely legal funding is a huge thing. Almost every GoFundMe that pops up for these families we've done a terrible job of funding so many of our public legal funds. right now, not just for people that are impacted by ICE, but even everyone is feeling the economic burdens right now. So people that need to stay in their housing, regardless of what their, documentation situation is, all of those sorts of things. Fully funding any of our legal services would be a great thing for the council to act on, in a way that you could support people without getting tagged and bagged by Congress. And also, I just put a personal plug, free lunches and breakfasts. It's a really great way, without having to do any sort of documentation, for these families to get support. I think that would be incredibly positive. I don't know anyone, there's tons of data that supports that being just a slam dunk all around. We've done it before and we can do it again.
So your remarks make me think that you're not aware of our Access to Justice initiative. We put $30 million into that this year. The mayor had proposed 10. That's for civil legal services. Some of that could be available to help with families to get papers that they need. So I don't think we need to start up a new program there. And I'm trying to be mindful that we don't have dollars for additional or new programs, but $30 million for access to justice. I think some of that could be used for this. With regard to meals, there's a lot of federal funding, although I guess it's sort of income related. But if it's a new program, again, it's going to be difficult. If I have a choice between maintaining funding in our schools at the current level or starting a new program, I'm probably going to go for maintaining funding at the current level. These are just the choices that we have to make.
Thank you, Chairman Mendelson. Can you put your contact information in the chat? We have at least one constituent who is asking to reach out to you directly about an issue she says she's having in her neighborhood.
She should reach out to my constituent services folks. I'll put down one of the
Great. Marlena Edwards, I hope you got that. I'll also try and make sure that I send that out as well. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you being here tonight. As always, you're always welcome here at the Ward 3 Democratic Committee. I hope you have a great night. And
yeah, I want to be there in person.
I'm sorry.
And I was thinking about taking the metro and climbing through the snowbanks to see y'all, but I guess it wouldn't have been successful.
Yes, the weather didn't cooperate tonight because we do like to have our general body meetings in person. But we will invite you back again, as we always have, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
spending your time tonight.
For the Ward 3 committee members, I motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Meeting is adjourned with no objections. Have a good night, guys.